Right, welcome to a brand new episode of the Kiddie Street Noise podcast, and today I am delighted to be joined by Glen Mullen. Glen, how are you?
I'm good, Rob. I'm good. It's early to be in the pub, but I'm good.
Yeah, it is very early. But yeah, we're not here to talk about me or West Brom. We're here to talk about the fans forum minutes, because obviously a lot of things have kicked off in the last week or so. You've released a statement. The club have released the fans forum minutes on the website, and there's a lot of changes that you've posted on BRFCS. So just want to get like an overall view of what's gone on, what's been said, and why there's been such like a disalignment between yourself, other fans forum members, and the club. But first, don't want to get straight into it. I'm going to introduce you. So a lot of people will know you as Venky's Out Glen. So obviously a lot of the stuff that happened around the Action Group in 2011 it started? 2011. But obviously you're not just Venky's Out Glen. You are a massive Rovers fan all your life and very proud of your hometown and your family roots and stuff like that. And that's a big thing for you, is like bringing family to football. You're taking your daughter on a season ticket this year?
Yeah, Ruby's got a season ticket.
Yeah. So I saw you at the home shirt launch event.
Yeah, getting shirts for that as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to do like a quick fire round of like, just to get to know about your Rovers history. So, first game that you remember?
What I remember? Obviously, I started going watching Rovers in the 70s.
Yeah.
In the late 70s. But I would say the season probably 87, our full Members' Cup run.
Yeah.
Obviously the Charlton game. But I'd say when I properly really got into it was probably the late 80s, when you started understanding who the players were. I remember, obviously getting old now, memory's not what it was, but I remember obviously when Kenny came and Ray Harford. I remember the Plymouth game, obviously where we won 5-2. And I remember going sort of a couple of weeks before, and there was hardly anybody there. And in those days, Rovers had come out and they'd kick the balls into the crowd. And as a young child, you wanted one of the autograph balls, and I'd always sort of stand on that first rail in the Blackburn end, and there'd be about 5 or 6 of us fighting to get the balls. And then obviously the Plymouth game, it was like we doubled the crowd. And they were amazing times for me as a kid growing up with not much. Football was really a treat back then. You got to go to football. It was a treat. It made your week, it made your month going to the football. So yeah, I would say that's sort of like the period, and probably the best period I enjoy, believe it or not. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like you mentioned there, like we're both from working class backgrounds in this town. Obviously, back then it was affordable and enjoyable, and it was like a really special occasion to go to the football. Does it make you feel worse about it? I know you ummed and ahed about buying a season ticket this year. Obviously you're doing better, like you do have a good job and you're a very successful person. Like, what do you feel about the current situation in terms of attendances and match going prices?
Yeah, I've never been a not a penny more supporter. Over the years, I've been a sponsor at the club. I've sponsored matches, I've sponsored the ball, sponsored players. So I've invested lots of money into the team. Obviously been season ticket holder, current season ticket holder. And, last season, me and my brother sort of shared a season ticket, but he sort of works funny hours, and we had the seats, and it was like, well, is there a point as both having one if we can't both go to the games due to our work commitments? But then Ruby wanted to go this year, and I thought, don't let Ruby down. There was nothing the club had done to convince me to sign on that dotted line this year. Absolutely nothing, with a disconnection. But, promised to my daughter. They play football themselves. They love playing football, and a lot of it, your friends are not going anymore. You'll relate to that. You used to go with a big group of friends and your family, and then suddenly the friends are not going. Suddenly the family's not going. And I've never been part of the drinking culture. I literally go to the game. Contrary to popular belief, I can actually keep myself to myself. I'm quite a private person, but it's that special, this season, building special bonds with Ruby, and her doing what I did with my dad and my uncle and my brothers, when I was her age, and trying to get her the bug, really, because I still believe you should be passing the baton. It was passed to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pass it on to my daughters, and at the moment they love football. They haven't got a clue about what the dad does in the background.
Probably best it stays that way.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm going to enjoy the moment for my daughter this season, and hopefully it'll be a successful season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Favourite kit?
Favourite kit? I did like the Ribeiro ones, in our promotion season.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really, really nice kit. I like the blue and white one. I think a Speedy.
Is that the lighter shade?
Yeah, I think like Speedy when I think about that top now. Obviously the yellow one was nice. Obviously when we went to the playoff final, one of my favourite days as a fan, going down the Robinson's coaches with my auntie, my uncle, and she was like into catering, so I knew I was going to get the best ever packed lunch. And to be part of that experience, going through the old Wembley, seeing all the old flags that they had on the concourse, and then actually winning the game. Really, really, really exciting times. And obviously they wore a one-off kit in the final, which I was lucky to get my hands on one, which was Gordon Cowans's, which somebody else has got that now, Matt Landon. Probably that kit more than anything.
Okay. Favourite player of all time?
Favourite player of all time? Obviously lots of people would say Alan Shearer. I used to like Scott Sellers. Scotty beat me up. I used to like Scott Sellers. I always saw myself as a bit of a Scott Sellers when I was at school. Even though I didn't have a left foot, I just I didn't like to pass the ball very often. I like Scott Sellers as a player.
Good stuff. And then current prediction for this season, obviously it's opening day. I know it's way off May. What would you think would be a good season, and what do you expect us to do?
A good season with the status quo. We obviously retain our status in the division. I think obviously we're going through transition. Lots of new players being bought from non-English leagues, so there's going to be that period of bedding in time. We have to get a good start. Historically, our season's been saved by a good start. We seem to, if a season was over 4 months, we beat Premier League. Yeah,
it's the January, February time. It kills us every year.
So, like every season, you're a football fan, you're optimistic. And I know on social media, people think, you've got agendas, you're negative, we're just concerned football supporters. We love it as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
We want us to win on a Saturday like anybody else. And we're excited when we win, we're excited when we buy a player like anybody else. And at the same time, we get down when we lose or we sell a player. There's no differential between a football supporter, everybody's the same.
Yeah, and I think we're having like I struggle, whereas of course I back the team and I want Val to do well, I want the players to do well, but I feel like two separate people when it comes to the club and the team, because the team I really want to do well, I really want to back. The club, people say you need to be more positive. I can't see anything to be positive about, and we'll get into the fans forum minutes and the things we talked about, and then you see people that are at the fans forum like patting themselves on the back for certain things they've achieved, and when you see the things they're saying that they've hidden, it's almost like, well, why are we celebrating that? And that's where I seem to get most of my frustration out. Right, okay, so timeline first. When did you actually sit down and do the fans forum?
So I'll go a couple of weeks before. So obviously I'm the chair of the action group, and obviously I've recently been elected co-chair of the Sports Trust with the Rovers, and obviously the groups I represent are part of the coalition with many of the other groups. And I'd emailed the club for an update, really, because we used to meeting with the club. They ignored it originally. So I reminded them of the customer charter about response times. Got an email back, and the email sort of suggested at this point in time we're not going to be meeting groups. Obviously the CEO has left. We're waiting to appoint a new CEO, and they recommended I'd attend the fans forum. And part of me thought, they're probably asking me to go because they know I won't go. to the fans forum because of just how I am. I believe in democratic fan representation. I don't believe in anything other, and I believe in transparency. So I had to think about it. I had a word with myself, sort of gauged if other people were going that were in the coalition, who obviously members of the coalition, the groups.
Yeah.
And in the end, I thought, yeah, go on, I'll go. I'll give it a try. Let's see what it's like. The bit I didn't know is the club had given me the wrong date. So, and nobody actually ever told me the right date. So I'd reached out to the fans forum. Yep, you can come along. I was thinking it was going to be on the Thursday. And it was only by chance I asked Kenny from BRFCS, what time are you getting here on Thursday? And Kenny said, it's actually tomorrow, Glenn. All right. So it's Monday, it's not Thursday. So I'd got the wrong date from the club. Nobody sort of put it right. Quick diary shuffle. It's, we'll go on the Monday. So went on the Monday. Obviously, met outside, went upstairs, they took us into a room. It was just a long rectangular table. Didn't know what quite to expect, so I'd never been before. So obviously we've gone in this long room, it's this big long table. And then bit by bit, the club officials started coming in. Lindsay Talbot sort of sat to my right at the head of the table. You see, he came in, he was sort of sat to her left. Then Rob Gill came in. Adam Owens arrived. And then Sir Hale came in, he went and sat at the top of the left table.
So are these coming in together? Are they walking in? Are they
individually they were coming in. Anna Amelia, she came in, and she sat over at that side as well. And we got ourselves a cup of tea. What I will say, there was no biscuits, which is good because I don't eat the biscuits, but they hadn't put the biscuits on. But I did get a cup of tea.
It'd be coming out the transfer budget anyway.
Yeah, so there was tea and coffee, but there was no biscuits. So people that say they go in tea and the biscuits, there definitely was no biscuits. And then Duncan was sort of sat to right to me. Kenny from BRFCS, he was there, and then there was representatives from the other supporter groups, Proud Rovers, SAS, Ewood Blues. And then I would say 60% of the room was probably independents. People that have been on the fans forum a long time. Some have been on there for nearly 25 years. Some went out to Pune to meet the owners all those years ago. So the meeting started. Mark Hitchin, who's obviously the chair, he had a sort of a set agenda, which I hadn't seen previously. I believe they had a pre-meet. But it was just a basic agenda. We was all handed one out, and John Waring was obviously going to take the minutes as the secretary. So the meeting started as Mark started going through the agenda, and they're just bullet points really, and it allows an open forum for people to ask questions. And what I will say is, there's no screening of questions. You can ask what you want.
Yeah.
And there's no that's off the record, or there was nothing to be off the record. There was no we can't discuss. It was literally anything you wanted to think about and think it was a question, you could ask it around those points, and obviously they had any other business at the end. So it started, the first couple of questions got asked, and I couldn't hear it. Sir Hale was at the bottom of the table, sort of mumbling really, very, very quietly. And I sort of said, can you speak up? None of us can hear you, please. And I sort of got a bit of a dirty look, and I think he shouted down the table to Yasir, can you hear me? So I thought, it's going to be like that, is it? But remain professional. I don't lose my rag.
Yeah.
I think it disappoints people that I don't lose my rag. It's probably the consultant in me. I don't lose my rag, and I don't really change my tone.
Yeah.
So then it came around to, they went through what was going on in the pre-season. You see, he gave a bit of a breakdown, obviously in Spain. They had looked at a bit of a meet and greet with the fans at the hotel. But the quotes to the club were, it was too much money. We can't really do it here with the fans. We're not really paying for that. The hotel wanted a load of money. But he'd said they had the discussion, but obviously there was people in the room. Duncan was going out there. I think Terence and Annette from the Ewood Blues were going out there, and they wanted to see what they can do when they get there, as well as just watching the football matches. And then Mark got on to obviously thanking Steve Waggott, for his time, especially hosting the fans forum meetings. Wished him luck. Asked, a few lines on a statement, on the website. Is that good enough? Have you got anything to add? And Sale said no more comments on it. So that was sort of shut down a little bit. And then Duncan got into asking, who's running the club. Steve Waggott's still here at Company's House, and who's accountable, who's making day-to-day decisions. Well, we've got no CEO, who's actually running the club. And Sahale, who in fairness was answering a lot of the early questions, just said, we've got a board of directors, they're running the club. And then it was pretty blunt, and there was no elaboration on it.
Do you still speak to Steve? Because I think out of all the members of the coalition, probably you and Duncan are the ones that spoke to him the most.
Yes, I've not spoken to him since he left. And
did you have any indication that he was going to leave?
So I'd had a meeting with Steve a week before his departure, and how that came about was after when they did the Radio Lancashire interview, and obviously the coalition are sort of aware of it. So when they did the Radio Lancashire interview, he made as part of the discussion with Andy Bays, he suggested he'd had some threats. And in the same sentence, he discussed the statement that the coalition put out. And when he did that, I thought, that sounds like it came from the same people. And I was extremely angry about it. So I reached out to Steve. And in fairness to Steve Waggott, if I contact Steve Waggott within 10 minutes, I'd get a response time. Within 24 hours, I can get a meeting with him. That's how it was. So I said, look, from a legal perspective, and I took a bit of legal advice on it. I couldn't let that stay on record. The coalition are nice people. It's all the supporter groups. There was no threats or anything like that in the statement. It was very much we want to get behind the team. And I just didn't want that sort of bad press to be around the coalition. I've got to protect the membership bases as well, so these groups got members. So I went to see Steve. Steve said obviously that his legals to look at it, they've played it back. He said definitely there's no correlation between the two. We disputed it. And then he said, we spoke openly. He said, Glenn, he said, I like you. He said, look, they're coming for you. I said, what do you mean they're coming for you? I said, Steve, I've had this for years. He said, Sale has said, we cut the head off the snake, the body will die. So I'm smirking me, thinking, that's a great statement. I said, well, Steve, on what ground? He said, look, the way they look at it, if they take you out, everybody else is going to stop. I said, Steve, it's not like that. I said, this is lots of groups of people. I says, I'm not the Pied Piper that everybody's just going to jump because Glenn says something. I says, people are concerned, rightfully concerned. And Steve was very, he'd changed, his persona had changed from meetings that I'd had earlier in the year, and I've had a lot of meetings with Steve Waggott. And for the people that are going to listen to this pod, the relationship I had with Steve, we go and have the meeting, we play the top trumps, he gets the difficult questions because it's never personal. And then after the difficult questions, we become Glenn the family man, Steve the family man, and you can have a chat. And we're all right. He was all right that way. My opinion of him was he knew football, bit of a Del boy, but he had connections, and I always felt he played it too safe. It was, let's not spend money. That's how I got the impression of it. Yeah. We put ourselves in financial difficulty, and in fairness, he had run for 6 years stability, and he always said it. He said it in that meeting. He said, Glenn, I can't understand it. He said, I've had 6 years of stability. He said, because I said, well, you staying? And he said, how can I walk out at this point and this be the parting shot of my CV? He said, and have this as my legacy. And I said, well, what's changed over the last 12 months? And he said that it was his idea for Sale Pastures to become the CEO. He said because people around the club was wondering what he does all day.
Yeah.
What's his role? And they felt in the best interest of morale within the offices, he needed a role. Hence, he went doing the COO stuff, getting involved with sort of commercial on the marketing side, so working closely with his CEO. And that's what he wanted him to do.
Yeah.
And so I blame Steve. You gave him the role.
Think someone like Steve, like his commercial experience and marketing experience. I know, I didn't get on with Steve, and we disagree with a lot of things, but he's got experience elsewhere, other clubs dealing with that. Sale's got none. So I think in the fans forum minute, he mentioned that he's in charge of the academy and commercial marketing. Well, why? Because there must be a better person to put in charge of those things.
You've got to remember the owner's advisor. He's on a lot of money, hundreds of thousands, and walking around with no defined role for 10 years and getting involved in this and that can create confusion. It can create lines of communication and hierarchy issues, who speaks to who. So it felt by him having a role, which he was tasked with doing, then with his experience, he's been around the club 10 years, he's worked in business development, they felt that was the right role. Where things had changed during the last 12 months, especially since Greg Broughton had left.
Yeah.
Steve said they had this committee, and it is that stage where he felt, at that point in time, at that meeting I had with him, he felt he was on a 3-1 loss.
Yeah, for every decision. Yeah, this is the 4 key people in it.
Yeah, so in terms of the key decisions, it didn't really now matter what his opinion was, because the other 2 would always align with Sahel.
Yeah.
Or that's how it felt, they always aligned. So he didn't, so when we're talking about bringing in Emmanuel Dennis, when we're talking about bringing in the manager, suddenly there'd been a shift. When we brought John Eustace in, that was an appointment to see Waggott. So there's been a shift through this committee. And he's not daft. He knew there was issues. He was quite honest on what those issues were. And I came away from that meeting and I thought, no, he won't resign. He won't resign. His wife wanted him to go home. She was desperate for him to go home. She said, don't need it, Steve. He said it, wants to go home. But in a strange way, he was just, I don't want that to be my legacy.
Yeah.
Not that his legacy has been absolutely fantastic, because, as I've said, quite tighter than cramp in terms of, but fair to say, probably a safe pair of hands. Probably not been as much animosity in the stands during the Mowbray year, and although we haven't evolved and crowds have increased, we've probably had a bit of stability in terms of unrest within the sport base.
Yeah. That was a massive tail away, weren't it? So what were we up to in the fans forum minutes?
So back onto the fans forum minutes. So I asked, obviously, Sahel, I said, who's going to be appointing the CEO, what the role's going to be, who'll be involved in the interviewing process, when we're likely to get one. And his opening shot across the board was, you speak to the owners, why don't you ask them?
How does he know you speak to the owners?
Well, quite well. Obviously, it's not an unknown secret. Steve, I spoke to the owners. I could give you some really funny tales of some of the ex-directors of some of the things they've had interceptions where the owners have rung them. Alan Myers gave me a really, really funny tale about when the club nearly sold Jordan Rhodes. And
was it that Mrs. Desai wasn't aware?
They weren't. The owners weren't aware, and they were they'd agreed to sell into Hull City. And obviously Alan's director of communications, and he's gone up to Hull and he sat in with, I think it was Steve Bruce at the time, and sort of agreed the deal because Gary Boyer had sort of decided that, look, if I can get some of this money, he doesn't really offer an awful lot to the team as Jordan Rhodes, apart from score goals.
The hardest thing in football.
Yeah, so that was sort of the general. He doesn't sort of offer much while scoring the goals. So they tried to sell him a couple of times, and obviously at that time the fans had a proper love him with Jordan Rhodes. He was scoring goals galore, and he was probably our best bet to get us up. And historically, they don't really invest money when it goes. So I'd got on to Balaji Rao, and I'd sort of said to Balaji, "This ain't gonna go down well." I says, we're on a promotion push. You sell a top goal scorer, and there's no reinvestment. I said, thanks, hang you. Anyway, Alan's agreed the deal. He's on his way back. Gets a phone call off Balaji. He asks Alan where he's been. He said, I've been at home. He says, I've had Glen Mullen on the phone. You're selling Jordan Rhodes? No, you're not. And he goes, what? He said, we've agreed a deal. I said, no, can't be done. Cancel it, it's not happening. And then Derek Shaw rings Alan and sort of says to Alan, Alan, everything's off. Don't sell Jordan Rhodes. I've had owners on phone. He says, that bloody Glen Mullen's been on to bloody owners. He says, deal's off. And then Gary Boyer sort of, I think he rang Derek, and he sort of said to Derek Shaw, where are we? Like, is he going? And he said, no. He says, Glen Mullen's getting intercepted it. He said, what do you mean? He said, no, it's not happening. And in Gary's head, I think he sort of thought Alan Myers had messed it up, but no, it sort of came round. And it's funny because I still engage with Gary. A lot of time for Gary Boyer, and in fact he's just brought a paper out, that's been printed.
Yeah.
An approved sort of paper, which obviously is an educational piece, which is I've seen that this morning. He's very proud of that. Yeah. But that just shows a little bit how dysfunctional the club can be at times. That
who's making the decision.
You've got to be careful sometimes when you feed stuff back to the owners. Yeah. That you're not interfering with what needs to be done into the day-to-day running of a football club. So I had to learn from that a little bit. That, things that obviously are causing a big stir, I will share that with them, and I'll share people's things that have been put on social media, but I want to be a football fan. I don't want to be interfering in the day-to-day running of a football club. So it was a
not
bit
for free anyway.
No, it's a bit of an eye-opener that. So and same with Jagdish. The son. I've had many communications with Jagdish over the years, and how he wants to, especially when he was young, how he wanted to learn about going getting the eggs, and he wanted to learn about the poultry industry, and he didn't just want to. He handed all this money or all this sort of be hand giving it. He wanted to learn all the different roles and learned a little bit about their family values. And don't get me wrong, they don't always respond. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Although I get read receipts for everything that's read, and that to me, knowing they're reading it, and knowing that
they're aware of what's going on.
They're aware of stuff, and knowing of the conversations I've had with past directors now, because everybody seems to leave the club. I know that gets fed back in, and it's not ideal, but we don't have an awful lot more right now.
So obviously Hale's unhappy that you're speaking to the owners. At that point, is it tense in the room?
It was tense throughout. The guy had come in the room, and it was aggressive. Everybody else was talking as we're talking now. He was shouting. His eyes were popping out.
Yeah.
He was, and I was actually, somebody told me prior that his demeanour can be like that.
Yeah.
I was really surprised in an open forum that somebody could be so draconian in their approach to supporters and customers.
Yeah. I think he gave that a bit away. Do you know, obviously we did the video, the Well It's Not video that got reposted just a couple of days ago. When Andy Bays challenges his opinion, he's almost like shocked that someone said, no, I don't agree with you. So as he's spent the last 10 years at the club, where he's not used to people disagreeing with him, and like anyone does disagree with him, he acts in that way, and then people, it almost like becomes like a learned behaviour to not disagree with Sahil.
Yeah, he certainly, as an opening shot, he made it, he didn't want to, and so many of the answers he gave afterwards, ask them. So you'd ask about why did John Thompson leave? Ask him. Why did Eustace leave? Ask him. Why Steve leave? Ask him. Why? And it was like his default answer many of the times.
What was the point in the fans forum then?
So we moved. So obviously we moved on. John Waring asked about obviously David Lowe's departure from the club. Obviously been reported into the Telegraph, and he went, "I'm not aware of him leaving." And he's looking round room. Anybody know about John leaving? And we're like looking at each other in the fans forum. Well, it's in paper. Has Elliot got this wrong? And we're sort of looking at each other. No, that's not happened. So, you know, sort of strongly moving on and that lot. My next question to him was, you know, why is it several loyal, long-serving employees, managers, players, all choose to leave this football club? Why is it we are getting, every season we're getting people that want to leave this football club? And as an example, Stuart Jones. He says, how do you know you were any good? And I said, well, you know, I said...
You employed him for the last 12 years.
Andy was only here 10 years, he said. And I says, well, you know, look what we've done with the academy. Look what bringing Adam Wharton through. He says, nobody knew Adam Wharton would be a good player. Nobody. He said, we did not think this guy would be a good player. And I said, for real? I said, everybody knew Adam Wharton was going to be a good player. I said, he was one of the worst kept secrets at the club. I said, when his brother came through, everybody said, wait till you see Adam play. I says, and everybody excited, as you know, even when he was a kid at school, the fans were waiting for him to come through. I said, what a ridiculous statement to make. But he was adamant, nobody knew Adam Wharton would be a good player. And again, he was saying it very obnoxiously.
Yeah.
He wasn't, there was an arrogance to what he was saying.
Like you can't know better than him kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, and then he went on about John Doe Thomason. He said, look, he's given 2 different interviews with the Telegraph, 2 different ones, conflicting stories. He gave one when he come and one when he left. Totally conflicting, he says, on John Doe Thomason. Again, Eustace, why don't you ask him? And it, you know, we weren't getting professional answers back. It was just a rant. And again, everybody in the room, at times it were popcorn moments for some. But I think people were astounded what was coming out of his mouth, to be honest. Yeah. It was like, we've just come for a fans forum to ask some questions. You know, we just want some... And
is this the first fans forum since Waggott left?
Yes.
So he'll be like obviously Steve probably would have answered the majority of the questions previously.
Yeah, I'd never been to one before, and it was organised chaos. You know, so we moved on. And again, I went on, you know, why are we at this point again where we're losing players out of contract or coming to an end of contract? How have we got to this position again? You know, Greg Borton here, we haven't got to this position. Why have we got to this position again? He said, look, Steve Waggott and Rudy Gestead looked after them contracts. Mistakes have been made again. We're now going to suffer because of this. He was very clear that it was Steve Waggott and Rudy Gestead's fault. And it was like, and now we're going to struggle because of this. He was very, it's you know, it's all their fault. And now, look at the mess they've created for us. This is how he put it across in the room. And you know, and he said, we've had this with Gestead, we've had this previously. Again, really reiterating how Steve Waggott has lost them a load of money.
Yeah.
Because this isn't the first time we've been in this position. We've been here before with the CEO, and previously obviously it's the CEO and Broughton. This time it's the CEO and Rudy Gested's fault.
So what was changed with the club's fans forum? Because I don't think they mentioned Rudy Gested at that point, did they?
No, so obviously when the minutes came out, which I'll get on to that in a bit. Can we go back to that? Can we get back to that? Yeah, we'll get back to the minutes. So then obviously Duncan, co-chair of Trust, and for the people that are listening who are not aware, there is a fan engagement plan, which is regulated by the EFL, and each season the club has to propose what their fan engagement policy is. And it's quite a large document.
Yeah, I think this one's 16 pages. It goes on about the November anniversary, quite a few of the pages.
And the previous one going on about how they're going to go, support the groups. They're going to work with groups. They've done this with groups. They've done all this wild and wonderful stuff in the community. They want to keep doing it. Their engagement's fantastic. The communication's fantastic. To be honest, if you read it, you want a job there. It's that great. This is the pinnacle of marketing of how great the communication is.
Yeah.
Which, I remember speaking to Steve in March, and they've not had a fans forum since November. I said, when are you going to have a next fans forum? But it was April I spoke to him. And he said, did we not have one recently? I said, no, you haven't had one since November.
It got cancelled because of Eustace left.
Yeah, 5 months before they'd had a fans forum. So it was like, and it wasn't like important on their spectrum. Obviously, so Duncan wanted to know where they are with the new policy. He didn't believe, and I don't believe, and other people don't believe that the club met the criteria last season. And the question was, how are they going to record what they're doing? When's the new one coming out? And Lindsay Talbot sort of answered it. She sort of said, look, we have to put it in. It's gone in. And basically you'll read about it. There wasn't really anything coming back. I sort of moved on to that about obviously the football regulator. And obviously Steve Waggott was a massive advocate for supporter involvement at football clubs. He'd been to Parliament, and he was actually drumming it up that supporters should have involvement at the football club. That supporters and club need to be one. And I know, talking to colleagues at the Trust, prior to my involvement with them, the ex-chair Mike Graham and Duncan, they worked really, really hard to grow that relationship, bring other supporter groups in, around the Girona game, where they did obviously take over. In fact, I think didn't they take the Trusts and Awards even at the EFL to pick up an award of how they engage with supporters?
I remember Duncan being there, suited and booted. I remember that picture.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the EFL.
I'm sure the EFL Awards
around the work they've done with the community, and a lot of that's led by Steve Waggott because he's a big advocate of it. And obviously, I asked the question. Now Steve's gone, big advocate. Are the clubs still going to support the independent regulator? It was, we'll continue to do as we've done before. So again, it was a little bit woolly. Sort of said, yeah, we're going to do it. Did I get any confidence that they would? No, not really. Then they got on to funding. Another member sort of asked, obviously, Sahel had been out to India. He'd been there for a few weeks as well. And quietly inside, I'm thinking, he might not come back. Because I remember Chevy Singh going to India, and he was gone for weeks. Yeah. And Mark Fish at the time, who was secretary at Action Group, said, Glenn, you're not seeing him again, he's not coming back here. I said, I'll be back. But he didn't come back. So I was thinking, is this the same with Sahel? Because at the time, you've got Rob Core, who seems to be looking after deals, you've seen Rudy, you've seen players sign, and Sahel's not in the country.
Yeah.
And because Steve had said to me, obviously in the meeting I'd had earlier with him in back end of April, early May, that obviously when the owners had seen themselves on the telly, when the coalition statement went out, they've been on the blow at what's going down, what's happening. They're absolutely livid that the name were in the press again. And they were blaming each other. say, oh, it's Steve's fault. He's the guy who's been talking to the fans. He's the guy that's had all the time with the fans. He must be the guy that's upset the fans. So that was sort of Steve's take on it. And I'd had some intel that one or both would go. Obviously, Steve's gone. Does Sahel follow him? Well, sort of watch this space, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody's wondering. So he said he'd been out, obviously. He'd been out about the funding. He said they'd obviously put 17 million in to offset operational losses from last season. And they'd recently sent another 5 million over. They'd agreed sort of a capex spend for some ground maintenance, training ground maintenance, about £1.5 million.
Yeah.
And the budget was not exactly what they'd asked for, but it wasn't far off. It was in line of what they'd got last season.
Yeah.
That was sort of the general take on things. You know, so it's probably just slightly up, you know, obviously with inflation, but certainly not vast amounts of money. I asked whether the club would generate, I asked, you know, when they generate funds from selling players, you know, he's a trusted advisor. I remember the exact words, you're the trusted advisor. 15 years ago, as a trusted advisor, you asked him to buy a club. You could, you know, 15 years later, you're still advising him. Yeah. As a trusted advisor,
yeah.
Can you advise them to agree? So there's crystal clarity amongst the board, the playing management staff, that when they sell a player, be that 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, that there's an agreed percentage for reinvestment into the squad. And he said, I've never asked that question. I said, well, you asked the question. And he was like, oh, well, and again, sort of went round and round the houses, and again, quite not really coming straight to the answer in that lot. And he said, there's no agreement in place. He's never asked the owners, and sort of went on the side of Sammy Smodic type thing, said, yeah, but we put 40% of Sammy Smodic money back in. I said, well, hang on a minute. I said, we sold Adam Wharton, you know, Kaminsky.
David Raya money.
Yeah, you've had the Raya money come in. You know, I reeled off all the money that they'd had off in the last 12 months. I said, and that had not been sort of invested. And he said, spending more money doesn't guarantee position. So it was very much, if we just spend that money, it doesn't mean we're going to get a better league position. So dismissed the fact that we'd had all this money, it hadn't been reinvested. Yeah. Duncan went on around, obviously, financial fair play headroom, because obviously discussed earlier, Steve Waggott's very, not what it's what he didn't spend. And in fairness, from a financial footing point of view, he got him from the verge of embargoes to having a lot of headroom with financial fair play. Yeah. And I think they'd asked in the previous meeting, if I recall, you know, would they go and ask for a lot more money? And the impression was they would. And, you know, because if they didn't, there wouldn't be any legacy from, you know, getting 17 million from Wharton, for example. Yeah. And Sahel said he never asked for any more. He said, I ain't asking their owners for 15, 20 million pounds. He said, it's not sustainable. He said, so after you've said, well, Duncan sort of went back, he said, hang on a minute, you said in a fans forum meeting, you're going to ask for a bigger budget. Yeah. You know, you've had understand they've had some issues with the court case, issues getting money into England, but you said you was going to go and get as a proper transfer budget. Now you're saying you never asked the question, because you don't believe, as their advisor, you don't believe it's sustainable for them to invest 15 to 20 million pounds in buying players. You know, again, he reiterated it was a workable budget, you know, and it was in line of the budget they had last year, and it wasn't reliant on us selling players. So if we sold Todd Cantwell for $3.5 million, really good number, not Todd Cantwell, Britain,
the budget wouldn't change.
The budget won't change. If we sell nobody, the budget won't change. If we suddenly get £20 million from an active guy, the budget won't change. So he was very adamant that the budget's been agreed, that's what they'll spend on players. Yeah. But it's not, we need to sell. So he was clear that they didn't have to sell. if the money wasn't right, bar obviously the contract issue.
Yeah.
And then Duncan sort of asked what is the aspirations of the owners of the football club? What are their aspirations? And Sale said sustainable football club, and sort of Duncan said at any division, and there was sort of a pause and it's sustainable football club. And then Adam Owen sort of came in, and he was saying, and he started reeling off teams like Brighton and Brentford and all these other teams about sustainable football clubs. And there was a bit of a debate with Duncan and Adam Owen. And once Duncan sort of put his points across, we went from sustainable football club to Adam Owen, well, more sustainable, not sustainable. As again, they conceded that it was pie in the sky, what they sort of suggested. So Duncan sort of went back.
I hate the reference to Brighton and Brentford as the models, because it's like Brighton's. I think they sold like Ajoa for like 15 million or something like that, but then didn't sell another player for 2 years and spent all that 15 million and went up. Whereas we've sold Adam Wharton. That was our chance. That was our chance to reinvest 20 million and go for promotion. I know it's still difficult with the teams coming down, parachute payments and whatnot, but in the Brighton and Brentford model, that was them selling Ollie Watkins. That was them selling Ajoa. We've now had that, and we're still selling players, and we're still not reinvesting. So I know we've spent a bit of money this summer, and that's great. And obviously, we won't know until if it's paid off until probably another couple of months into the season. But I feel like now we've missed that opportunity. But it's almost like Brighton and Brentford did it. And it's like a throwaway comment, because it doesn't add up. Like what we're doing is nothing like what Brighton and Brentford did.
It's not like what they did, and I think the budget, give and take, is probably about 5 million, and it's in line with what they were sold when they bought the club. They put 5 million in each season for investment, and we're 14 years down the line. 5 million doesn't get you an awful lot nowadays.
No, so have not gone up with inflation.
Yeah, so. And when you're trying to build a squad on 5 million, don't forget they're saying any money that we generate, it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
That 5 million is, you can lose 7 players, 10 players, 15 million. You just have to make it stretch further.
Yeah.
And it takes me back to when we was a kid, when my mum and dad would buy fish and chips, and your brothers weren't in, because if your brothers in it was going to be a small portion. And yeah, so they're just trying to make it, stretch further. They got onto season tickets, of how many obviously they'd sold. I think they said the number was down by about 3%. You see, you said, it was the worst possible time to put them on sale. Worst possible time. Manager gone, results not going well, social media, everything that's going on. He didn't push as far as saying stand unrest, coalition statements, but he said the negativity on social media had impacted sales, although not as much as they thought it would, because they were expecting less people to buy than actually did, given what the stuff they were reading on social media.
Yeah.
He doesn't think it's an affordability thing. He's very much, that's how many fans we've always had. I don't know where he's getting his data from. I did actually say to him, stop reading, don't look at the spreadsheet in front of you, just answer me the question.
Yeah.
Because he was busy reading spreadsheets. And I said, and Duncan said, we've lost supporters during the 1960 Cup final ticket debacle. And obviously we've lost supporters during the period since we got relegated. And yeah, you see on social media, we didn't have a load of fans, and now we're not winning, and they came when Jack came, and now we're back where we should be, and they're just natural. People just going to go away. We've had steady decline.
Yeah.
The people I know who don't go to the games are people I were going to the games 20 years ago.
Yeah.
People that I met at the games 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Yeah. People before Jack Walker. But they sort of said they've got this core amount of supporters, And the general consensus was, come rain or shine, give and take a couple of cent, they're always going to renew.
Yeah.
And it's now about generating a new generation of supporters. You know, we did talk about it. You know, I said, look, explained my life of supporting Blackburn Rovers and how it started. I can track it all the way back 150 years. And I've been going on, nearly 50 years. And my dad and his dad. And I says, and that passing of the baton, you're born into that, just like I'm passing it on to Ruben. And they listened, in fairness. And then another foreign member sort of said, no, club's right, they just need to find new fans. So again, there's cross-section.
But if you've never been to football before, there's no way you're going to go and spend £450 on a season ticket. Because a lot of people probably don't understand how much a season ticket should cost. Whereas if you've got someone growing up in Chorley now, or I spend a lot of time, like I play golf at Turton and my mates around Edgerton Way, it's obviously like in the middle between Blackburn and Bolton. There's a lot of kids growing up there now that, like, if they're looking at season tickets and match tickets, at Bolton it's 220 quid for a season ticket, or you can come to Rovers for 450. It's not even a choice. It's not even like I'll think about it. They're going to Bolton. Like, I know friends that have now moved over that way, and they will go on, but they're not Bolton fans, but they go because they can park for free, they can like drink and eat for relatively cheap, and they come home and they drive straight onto the motorway. Whereas at Rovers, if you drive, you're there for an hour on Bolton Road before and after the game. £15 to park, or you risk getting a parking ticket around Livesey Branch Road or all that lot. And it's like, but again, I'm just talking into the wind because Yassi is never going to listen, is he?
In fairness, we are going through a period where, we look at this season already. Already we've got a load of games moved to 12:30 kick-off, a load of games going on the TV, a load of games, and where football used to be a 3 o'clock sport.
Yeah.
We'll meet you in the pub, we'll do what, Saturdays our afternoon, that's what we're doing. Suddenly the behaviour's going to change. Some of them are going in the morning now, some of them are going on a Sunday. So I can understand the outside pressures of, well, you know what, there's that many games on the TV, do I bother to go? The bit I don't buy is the acceptance of that. Because football, the adrenaline of being in the stands,
there's nothing that can replace
you can't beat it.
No.
And football's been on telly for years. We've had football on telly when they're getting 27, 28,000. People will go to the game because of the adrenaline buzz.
The Burnley game were on TV.
Yeah, the adrenaline
and we
buzz.
sold out. So
and we've got a fantastic away following.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if they're on the TV; those fans are going. So it's the counter argument of the match experience, the excitement, the product, and feeling a connection. And most people I talk to who are concerned, it's the lack of connection that they have with a football club. Some people, not bother, come rain or shine, they'll go. Don't really read social media, don't really pick up a newspaper. Just go on a Saturday afternoon, watch the game, go home. And it's a day out for meeting family and friends, and that's absolutely fine too. Everybody's different. Me and Duncan then sort of asked, which we didn't get an answer, that could the club publicly recognise the failures of the management of the club, the governance of how we've managed this club under the ownership of the Rouse, how it's had an impact on the attendances, how it's having an impact on regeneration. And when we talk about that, we talk about the businesses that are closing down, the local pubs that are closing down, people that was really reliant on the passing trade, because, during, the mid-90s into the 2000s, people wanted to set up business around Blackburn.
Yeah.
That passing trade kept businesses going. And yes, there's other wider impacts, price of a pint's gone up, but it's just little shops that are closing down. The impact it has on the stakeholders. A football club isn't just about playing football on a Saturday afternoon, it's the wider impact it has on the town. Some that I've picked up obviously with the new MP and the meetings I've had with him. Then we got on to obviously the club kits. We've sort of told that obviously they're going to bring out a one-off shirt for the Derby game. I did ask, is it going to be in a box? doesn't know it's going to be in a box, but I've still got, obviously, the 125s, I've got 2 of them. So. But that shirt, obviously, they're wearing the game. There'll be a limited run, so that's exciting. I think everybody's saving up for one of them, and no doubt the club will cash in on it. And
which I fully expect them to do. Yeah.
And hopefully it's a little bit more representative than maybe the kits they brought out. Some people love them. I bought the gold one myself. Bit perplexed by Darwin Towers on it, but
I mean, as someone from Up Guide, we can see all 3 towers. We can see Winter Hill, Blackpool Tower and Darwin Tower. So I think it's a representative. I think it's a landmark of Blackburn, because that's, especially like when you drive into Ewood.
You can see Deepdale as well.
No, we're not that high up. Not that high up, the whole thing. But obviously, like driving to Ewood, like when you come off the motorway there, Darwin Tower is in front of you. That's your landmark. The thing with the gold kit for me is how many Ewood graphics are on it. Like there's quite a lot. It's like around the bottom half of the shirt. It's like Ewood. Where we could have used a Jack Walker statue. We could have used River Blakewater if you wanted to. Like there's lots of landmarks that we could have used, and it's almost like we've got these 3, so we'll just keep. At the Blackburn train station, just keep printing that everywhere. I was just a bit like, well, there's more to us than Blackburn train station. That's just the way into the town. It's not really.
Material's nice though. That gold one, material's really nice. Quality's much better quality than the green one and the blue and white one.
What is the issue with the quality? Because I know you mentioned that.
So the blue. So I'd asked. So I went to the launch, and it went in the minutes. So I was very good. Obviously, it leaked. It leaked. Quite embarrassing. It leaked, and. Obviously, the marketing lady was quite defending, really. So, it was young lads that sort of leaked, and we're going to carry on working with them because obviously it's probably she's brought them on board.
Yeah.
And it was embarrassing that it had leaked. So, and I was expecting this fantastic event to go to Ewood, and I don't know what I expected. I think I was expecting players to come out of like smoke and like WWE or something. This big mass launch. And I've got a ticket. I've got a number. I've got a seat.
Well, I was expecting not like a timeline of the creation, but just something like these are the details. Why have you included them? But it was just like a shop indoors.
Yeah, it was a pop-up shop. So I've got a front row seat. Got it nice and early. Take Ruby. Let's go and get one. Let's hear all about it. And then it gets there. Got there nice and early, so to make sure nobody nicked my seat. And then guy on the door who I know very well. He said, "You're going up there." So I'm not into like half 6. He says, "Oh no, you just go up." All right. I goes upstairs, and there he does a pop-up shop. So there's like some tops in the middle of the room. You can pick them up, hold them, decide which one fits you, and then you go to like some tables and tell them which one you want. If you want your name on it, they gave you a ticket. And then you went somewhere else and then sat on some chairs, which I sat on for about 40 minutes waiting for a number to be called. And my daughter says to me, "Are you not supposed to give them that ticket, Dad?" I thought, "Does it not go from there to there?" So then she went and gave them a ticket, and then they printed them. But the staff were really nice on the night, really, really professional. And they sold a lot. So, Ruby got hers with her name on the back. Got Emily one, she had her name on the back. By the time I got home with them, it looked like the cat had been running up and down them. And literally, he touched it and it was plucking everywhere. So my wife obviously took them back the following day. And they still had the labels on them. And she had a little bit of hassle getting them changed. "Oh, well, I said, "There's something damage on the book." "You didn't come out yesterday." I said, "No, they've been wearing." She said, "No, they've got labels on." So eventually, they changed them. And obviously, I asked you to see here at the Fans Forum what that's all about. And he just said, "Oh, it's always like that on a first batch. The quality is very bad on a first batch. You usually get better second batch and third batch."
Why would that be the case?
And inside I'm thinking, well, are we going to have half price on first batch next time?
That's what I mean. So he's like celebrating. Obviously on LinkedIn he made the post about how well the first launch of kits had gone and we sold all these numbers, and then he's there saying in the Fans Forum, well, the first ones are crap.
Yeah, the batch is always bad, and they had a lot of returns. And he says, in fairness, they've returned them to Macron and they'll get refunded for them.
Yeah.
And I think most people took them back and they've been changed. Anyway, the replacement, Emily wore it for Sports Day. And it looks like she's had it 20 years. She only wore it once. So it's definitely one of those stocks for me that you can just take on a match day.
Yeah.
Wear it sparingly.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, the kit's pretty looking things, I've heard.
I love the green kit, and I wish they'd use a town badge, but the actual design of it, I love it.
Yeah, I think they missed the trick not using town badge. It would have looked so much nicer with that, and I believe they had engagement with panels. Can't discuss what that was. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I tried not to discuss things I've not seen myself or heard myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the main, they sold well. And I think the Macron kits in the main have not been so bad.
Yeah, they've been good at Macron.
They've been all right, yeah. So, obviously, then they went on about the summer works. Lindsay talks about some money that's been spent at the training ground. As I told her, obviously the safe standings going in. It couldn't go in for the Everton game, but they'd agreed with the contractor that they'd get the anchors, drill for the anchors, and obviously try and get them ready for the first home game of the season. So that's all on track. Naively, I thought they were taking the old seats out.
That's how safe standings should be done.
Yeah, because obviously I remember seeing them back in the day when I was on Football Supporters Federation, when I was on National Council. I remember it was like a rail and it had a seat that dropped.
Yeah.
She said, no, they're not taking the old. So
they're just putting rails on top of the existing seats.
Yeah, so, lads carrying a bit of timber like me and you, Rob, and
they're struggling,
Yeah.
But obviously, like, the seats, when, like, if you're stood up, like, obviously, you go to away games now, and, like, a normal seat, if you stood in it, the back of your cars get ripped to pieces by the seat. Yeah. So if you're going to have to, like, let people past, not been that much room for, like, the rails in front of you as well. But I just think, like, considering how many seats we're doing, I think I worked out when Celtic did their curve, I think for like 5,000 seats in the corner, like £600,000, and we're not planning on doing that many seats. We're only doing like 1,000 altogether, like 1,200 or something like that. So I thought, it'll be like 200,000 at the very most, and we're not even on a curve, so it's on a straight line, so there's not really that much issue. Still doing it the cheapest way possible. And I just think, if you're going to invest, you need, like, if you buy cheap, you buy twice. That's what I always say.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they did an awful lot of engagement, to be honest. Who wanted to sit there, who doesn't want to sit there. I'm surprised they didn't say, all right, now we've got safe standing. We'll juicy bonus it and put another 200 quid on it.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. It's great that our club is getting the safe standing, that is definitely, it's great because we'll be one of the first clubs that are doing it.
Yeah.
There's other clubs that have done it, but the fact that experience is being brought back, I think it's a great plus. And I don't know, in the areas they're putting it, those fans predominantly want to stand anyway. Yeah. So I think that's quite a good thing. And then they went on about they spent some money on the toilets in the Blues bar. Needed paint. Right, so which
£42.
Which, in fairness, when the fans forum was originally formed by John Williams, that's what discussions were about.
Yeah.
It was about we painted the toilets. We've put a defibrillator in, and it was about non-footballing stuff. That's what it was set up for.
Yeah.
About waiting times at turnstiles, what's on the kiosk. Bit of insight into kits, bit of insight into tickets, and that's pretty much what the fans forum was set up for. And it's, in first, they've done a great job over the years because it's a thankless task.
Yeah.
Going to the forum and giving your time up and giving your evening up, but that's predominantly what it was set up for. So talking about things like that, obviously, that's the things they talked about. The stewarding came up now. As a supporter representative is part of elected groups, so obviously you represent your chair or you're on the board of groups of members. You're an elected board member, and as an elected board member, sometimes you've got to discuss things that are not important to you.
Yeah.
In fact, you might not even agree with it, but you're not there for you. Your opinion gets left at the door, and that's the difference between being an independent on a panel, because you're talking about you, than representing others. Hence, I always say it should be democratic. And obviously, prior to the meeting, I'd had a couple of people contact me about being upset about the parking for new staff members. that anybody who's existing staff had a parking permit and they'll get to park on match days for free at the club. These new employees, no, that option's not. You'll have to pay on the new ANPR system. And, so I sort of brought that up, that hang on, where's the equality, where's the fairness?
Yeah.
The rebuttal was, we ain't got loads of car parking spaces. Well, it's more about to me, it was just more about making money. But
have they sold the car park to this third party?
No, they're just literally getting the cameras on that so that you get a parking ticket if you haven't paid.
Rather than a person doing it.
Yeah, it's going a bit more modern. I think they'll probably still have a person to coordinate on the day, but it's just make sure that everybody's paid. And it's the way the world's going.
Yeah, but my concerns were, I think I've spoken to you about it, if we've got Millwall away on a Tuesday night and they've had to park down Sandy Lane or what's the other one called? Yeah, it is Sandy Lane, down that way. Well, the away fans walk out, you're leaving there at 10:30 at night. It's not nice for the most stewards are Kias people, 18, 19-year-old, some of them young girls. They don't want to be walking through away crowds.
And I brought that up, as somebody that's done crowd control, close body control, work the doors, they can be dangerous jobs, and you want to be part near your venue.
Yeah.
Because worst case scenario, something goes bad, you don't want to be walking a mile.
No.
And you don't get a lot of money to work there, a lot of it's minimum wage. If half your night's wage is going on parking your car, it's never been a problem before, so why is it a problem now for the staff to park? And again, I think it all comes back to we can get more revenue. Car parks now 15 quid?
Yeah.
So I had a bit of a discussion around that. Then we got on to the ladies team. Obviously Megan from her game 2 sort of led on it initially. Obviously said, how does that align with the values and the women's game? And obviously you're aware, we've had discussions with the women's team, with the players, members of the coalition have spoke with the manager who's now obviously departed. And you can't help, as a human, be devastated for them, the women. This is people's livelihoods. This is, some players were injured. This is, how does my rehab go? People got mortgages, just trying to make it in life as a woman, as a footballer, really, really tough. They don't earn the best money, but the way they found out on a WhatsApp group that's it,
it's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
We will not be entering the league tomorrow. So,
and that was only through people pushing to find that information as well. It wasn't forthcoming from the club.
Yeah.
Someone.
And don't get me wrong, the redundancy. And for your listeners, who would have gone through a redundancy situation, it can be hard.
Yeah, it's a horrible
It can be,
process,
you've got the consultation. There wasn't really a consultation period. It was literally you're going. And I put all that to the club, in particular to sales. I said, we treat our people in the UK with respect and dignity. This is not what we do. We do not do this sort of just cast people.
Yeah, it's just them.
Cast them to one side.
Yeah.
I said the club knew 12 months ago the new rules. Why did the club 12 months ago not consider options? Why did they not consider investors? Why did they not consider selling that element? Why did they leave it to the 11th hour and then just pull the plug? He obviously, it's Steve Waggott. Steve Waggott was running the football team. Steve all looked after it. I said, no. And I know Steve was extremely angry that this women's team is going, by the way. And it may have been the straw that brought the Campbells back. Time will tell on that. But this was his own Steve. He was pushed better, pushed again. Who made the ultimate decision to get rid of the football's team? And in a flash of anger, it was the owners made the decision. And I said, but we had to push it.
Yeah.
We had to push it. We had to, the intel I'd had previously, they did not want anybody to know it were the owners. They wanted it to be, it was an operational decision. And they were chucking that nobody invests in women's football. we gave the counter argument of saying, look, this is a different type of product. You know, if people ain't coming, or you haven't maximised sponsorship, or you haven't maximised the growth, you know, you're quite happy to celebrate when the England team does well, but now cast them away. I said, that's a failure on your part. You employ people. It's not a failure on how the women play. It's a failure on your business plan. It's a failure on your ability to market.
Yeah.
So they were, you know, they were. We were very strong with them how they'd done it, and the bad press that it had created once again for the football club. You know, obviously we just watched the Euros again. The ex-Rovers players, and even this week we're seeing articles of how bad this is. And obviously they're not going to be playing at Ewood. They used the excuse, which somehow did make the minutes. It was asked to go in the minutes for Proud Rovers, because they're, you know, Proud Rovers absolutely fantastic in that meeting, by the way.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good. Really good points they raised. And exactly the type of representation you want on a forum.
Yeah.
Going to ask the right questions. But there was, like, you know, they gave a rebuttal to the Proud Rovers around did fail the Cat 1 Academy by having women put the training ground. That never made the minutes, but it is on my list of things to do to see what the truth is around Cat 1 academies and women being there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're due a renewal of the academy status, and it's obviously not come about. It was due. The last time they announced it was 3rd of July, 3 years ago, so we're obviously a month past that and still not heard anything, which obviously under normal circumstances I'd be like, oh, it's just taking longer, but with the way that they communicate and there's not really much trust around the club at the minute, it's almost like, well, what are they hiding? That always seems to be my first instinct. If they're not saying it, what are they hiding? What have they got to hide, rather than, oh, just give them time?
Yeah, it was... That sort of, I think that obviously we need to go and investigate. Is that true?
Yeah.
Does that have an impact? And then you can say, well, if that's going to be a thing that you fail the audit for, then obviously from, you know, the Cat 1, you know, they've got big decisions to make.
Yeah.
But at the same time, equality, you can't breathe and promote equality and then not do it.
No,
and it hasn't been done very well. Obviously Duncan asked, you know, are the owners all aware of the bad press this has got? And again, quite an arrogant, do you think the owners don't know what happens at their football club? And I think at that point, because it was getting quite heated, I said, look, we digress, we move on. Because it was getting a little bit just out of hand, and I'm thinking, and like I said, there's still people just around the room eating popcorn. I think they were fascinated, you know, and...
just not used to that at the fans forum?
Probably not, no. I don't know. But I did feel like we'd hijacked the meeting. Again, I think Kenny, he sort of asked, had the club rejected any external funding? You know, apparently there have been offers of external funding. So Hale said, no, there have been no offers. We know, because we've spoke to the people who have offered to put the money in. And obviously under confidentiality, obviously we can't share who that people are, but we both know that they were offered substantial funding for them to take a financial interest in the women's football team. So again, just a damn right lie, really. Again, it was asked what the plan was for the team. Obviously they're going to be in Division 4. That made the minutes. And Duncan asked about, obviously, one of the players is saying that they've not been having, you know, they're not doing an ACL, not having the rehabilitation, and the club isn't funding it. The club sort of denied that and said it's been sorted, we're sorting it out. And we've got to take them at the word. That's, you know, that's what the case is. But obviously that's gone in the minutes. Again, you see her try to back up why it was a good decision. Other women's teams are in financial difficulties. Again, always what somebody else is doing and not, you know, I don't really care what somebody else is doing. All I care about is what we're doing. And again, I pushed, I think to close that out, I pushed towards the end that, you know, can he admit that this has been handled terribly? It wasn't handled well, should have been handled better. And he conceded, we should have handled this much better. So fair play, you know. acknowledgement was there.
Yeah.
Somebody then asked who was what his role were, and he sort of said he was looks after the commercial operations, and what's made the minutes is the academy.
Yeah. What did he say then?
It was never said.
Oh, right.
You know, I never heard that, and I've questioned this, but he said the academy.
Yeah.
So, but that's what's made the minutes. That commercial in the academy. I don't know why he'd be running the academy.
Yeah, that's why I was confused about that.
Yeah,
I said
but, you know,
no experience.
But he wasn't really pressed on that.
Yeah.
I know if I'd heard the word academy, I would have. Pressed.
Helped you.
Well, why are you involved in the academy? Have we got? You know, especially after what he'd said about Stuart Jones earlier.
Yeah.
And then I sort of talked about obviously the fans forum in general. I felt really sorry for some of the people that had come because I don't think they're used to the level of questioning that was put there. Obviously, I need to reiterate, as an elected representative of two supporter groups that have constitutions and membership bases, the meetings those groups have with the club are mandated by the membership, and the directions of those groups are driven by the membership. And sitting in this forum area, you don't want to be talking about memorandums of understandings, for example, the owners' trust. You don't things which are specific to supporters groups. You know, obviously the disabled supporters groups are there, so they'll have their own little mandate things they want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I said, look, and I think I actually used to do it. I said, look, you know, supporters do not like, in general, secret meetings. They like transparency.
Yeah.
They don't like unelected panels, and this isn't the right vehicle for the supporter groups. You know, nothing wrong with having a fans forum to discuss what it was made for, but as a cop out to not meet groups or have the open consultative meetings, which Stevie brought up that they've not had since COVID. This is an acceptable level of consultation for fans forum meetings a year. It's a tick box exercise.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. Lindsay Talbot said, Steve Waggott, CEO, wasted all his time with an open door culture. It's not the best use of his time. And which I sort of raised my eyebrows at and thinking, so it's a waste of time to engage with the supporters. And then she said, you know, when she comes in, the new CEO, she'll have her own ideas on how the fans forum will run. I think she. I'm thinking she. Yeah. And then she corrected herself, or it could be a he. Which had a bit of brain ticking. Oh, are we getting a female CEO? But I sort of didn't really push on the she, you know, because she did correct herself. But I got the distinct impression, and this was prior to the new FEP coming out, that they have no intention of meeting groups, no intention of honouring the memorandum of understanding that they've got that they signed on the pitch with the trust, and they're looking to obviously just do these fans forums, which pretty much says it in the FEP, which we've seen since. And again, I would just push that the wider supporter base needs transparent communication. They need, if there's meetings, they need transparent communication where they can believe what's said. And then one of the final points we sort of pushed on was, had there been any interest in the club? Obviously, Sale had gone on Radio Lancashire and said, never ever been any interest in the club. Nobody's ever approached the club. And so I asked him, I says, obviously, past directors, and to protect their NDAs, I won't name who, but had 3 approaches, one from an Austrian group, one from an American group, and one from Brazil. All these offers were sent to the owners, expressions of interest, we call them, not offers, expressions of interest. And the response from the owners, stop sending these to us, we do not want to sell football club. So this myth that they've never had an approach
is a lie.
Or this myth that nobody else would want to buy us is purely that. It's propaganda, it's a myth, and something that I see thrown out so often as an excuse to just be happy with what we've got.
Yeah, that's all you see on social media. Who else would own us? Who else would buy us? That is always the rebuttal for, well, they're not doing the best they can for the club. But it's like, well, who else would? It's like, well, we can't just keep throwing that out. People that try and challenge the status quo. Hello and welcome back to the Kids Street Noise podcast for part 2 of the Reels Fans Forum. We're obviously in a different location to the first half of the podcast. We'd got relatively close to kick off on Saturday in the pub and it started getting a bit louder and the audio was a bit too difficult to listen to, so we've only gone back like another 10-15 minutes. I'm going to re-record from this point and get the last couple of points because we've covered most of the Fans Forum minutes. And the things that we really need to talk about now are just what happened after the Fans Forum, which led us to obviously Glen and the Action Group releasing a statement, the emails around what needed to be amended, what wasn't amended, and obviously all the fallout from that. So Glen, tell us, what happens after you leave the meeting?
So I left the meeting. I was... Yeah, it was quite a surreal meeting. Mum's actually sort of leaving the meeting, sort of trying to digest what had been said. Went home. I wasn't quite sure what to expect really, how the minutes were done or anything like that. And then I got a message on the Saturday from another one of the attendees from the forum, asking what I thought of the minutes. And I said, "What minutes?" I said, "I haven't had any." So I checked my emails, checked my spam, no email. I said, "Oh, can you send us a copy?" So they sent them across. And I started reading the minutes. They were probably 2 pages long at best. And I just thought, where's everything that was discussed? That's not what we discussed. Where's all the main points? You know, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you know, I've seen, you know, the Fans Forum take some pelters before, and I thought, crikey, I don't want to start taking pelters that I also went to a meeting and never asked the right questions. So I emailed the secretary, John, and I said, you know, I CC'd a number of the forum members in, and I just said the minutes don't seem to represent what was discussed. There's loads of bits missing, loads of bits that don't seem to be what was actually said. You know, if it's okay, you know, can I send him an edited version? So this was on the Saturday, and what I will say, when they actually got a copy of these minutes on the Saturday, it said that they'd already been to the club, they'd already been approved, and they were going on the website on the Monday. So obviously I've got these on a Saturday. These minutes that have been sent to me are going on the club's website on Monday, and I'd not been obviously seen any sort of discussions around minutes, so I thought, have I been excluded? Obviously I started asking for forum members, but no, nobody had seen them. They'd basically been done between the secretary, the chair and the club, which is the normal process, which I now believe. And then they just go on the website and nobody's ever challenged them before. So quickly got around to getting some minutes typed up, making adjustments to the current minutes, so I sort of wrote my bit in red. And by the time I finished, it was more red than black. And so I sent them obviously to the secretary, and I CC'd in the forum members, and then one by one the forum members sort of responded, and they said, these new set that I've done are more representative of what had been said. That's exactly what was said in the meeting. They're exactly the points that were discussed, and these are the minutes that obviously need to go forward. And then there was a big silence for days. I never heard anything. And then I got a message, I think it was sort of 3 or 4 days later, asking, have I done these amended minutes? I thought, well, yeah, so you sent him every commented on them, so I sent him again, like. And then a couple more days went by, and then I was notified, obviously they've been sent to the club now, these amended minutes, and they'll wait for notification. So that came from the secretary. He said that's what he'd done, he'd sent them on to the club. And then another set of minutes were circulated. So they came back from the club, and the alarm bells were ringing then, because they changed the truth, basically. Things that they'd said, they'd now changed the wording. The Rudy Gestede thing is a really good example. They'd said that Rudy Gestede and Steve Waggott, it was their fault about the contracts. It was their fault that we're in this mess. Very adamant that was the case. And then he changed it to now it's Hale, nothing to do with Rudy. So there was, and then they were adding bits that weren't discussed. So when they came back, again, I rejected them. I said, totally reject these. And then one by one, the supporter groups followed suit. We reject these minutes. We reject these minutes. We reject. And I sort of saw email after email. We reject these minutes. These are not a true reflection of what was discussed, and these are not the answers that the club gave. So everybody was sort of on the same page. At this point, people are thinking, "Cracky, when these minutes coming out?" And then I got notification, sort of the day. I obviously put a statement out on behalf of the group, because obviously you represent members. Integrity is very, very important. And I got an email from the chair of the forum that basically just said to everybody, and it went individually, so I couldn't see the responses going from everybody else. And it basically said, anything that you don't agree with in the minutes, we'll just have removed, and we'll strike it off as unagreed, because these minutes need to go on the website, and we will not be sending them back for another round of approvals. At that point,
surely it's better to post, delay it and post the actual things that were said, rather than just get them out there as they are when it's not a true reflection of what was said.
Well, the suggestion was that as time goes by, people's memories start going off and they don't remember what was said. But I'm thinking, well, the minutes have been written. They've been written in a good time.
Yeah.
So if it went up 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 12 years, there's a written there's a written set of minutes which everybody's agreed to.
Yourself, Katie, Duncan all attended, and other obviously groups that had emailed back saying that I agree with your minutes. So it's not like it's just your memory that's fading, because obviously busy lifestyle and you've forgotten, these people are all agreeing with you and seconding your view of it. So the email doesn't really make sense, and the reason for changing the fans for 4 minutes to upload them as quickly as possible just didn't make sense at all.
No, and what I will say, in 20 years of meeting the club, it's probably about 20 years, I've met them in various different forums. I have never in 20 years been asked by the club to change minutes. I've always sent them what I've written as a courtesy. Well, those minutes are going out, and I've never had the club come back and say that must be changed or anything. In fact, I've never really had a discussion with the club in 20 years where they've sort of filtered what I can say, because I've always made it clear from day dot that if you can tell me, you can tell everybody, because I don't do this. They can know what you can't know. So the whole process, which I believe is now, learning now, I believe it's common practice that these minutes get discussed between the chair, the secretary and the club, and that's a given, and there's no sort of input from the fans forum members. That's been the process for 20 years. And I can understand maybe why, because you've got so many people on the room. If you got everybody cheaping into minutes and that, you'd never get to the end of getting some minutes done. So there has to be that level of control.
Yeah.
But the fact they were rejected twice by the members, we've now got minutes on the club website which have been rejected by the people that attended that meeting.
Yeah, but then it almost like they've got this fan engagement plan, had this fan engagement plan for the last so many years with all these fan forum minutes uploaded. Were any of them true? It's like the ones, especially like the ones, I think like the ones after like Duncan Maguire fiasco and that January transfer window, and the ones around like Mowbray not getting a new contract and players leaving around then on freeze. There were important fans forum minutes around that time, and now they're just not believable at all because of what they've done. What we now know, that they're highly amended and basically not a true reflection of what gets said in the minutes.
Yeah, I can't comment on meetings that I weren't in. I've not been to previous meetings. What I will say, it's a thankless task doing support representation, being on a fans forum. Meetings over the years, take a day off work, take an evening off work, you lose pay, you're travelling to and you're going asking questions, and nobody's ever going to be happy with the answers. And what a set of minutes won't show is how the questions were asked, what the feeling was in the room, who was obviously you can see who was asking them because it says who was asking them. And then you sort of get like a bit of a diluted version, and I'm sure over the years at the fans forum, knowing some of the fans forum members, especially past ones, and I would say the people in the groups, I'm sure they do ask pressing questions. The problem is I'm not sure those pressing answers are recorded as they should be recorded or communicated to the supporter base as perhaps they should. It may, it's either that or obviously from previous minutes, those questions are maybe not asked the same way, and fans forum members and that lot. Like I said, it's a thankless task. You've got different opinions. There's people on the fans forum who don't see there's any issues at the club, which is good because you've got cross section people that don't think there's an issue. You've got those that do, but from a transparency point of view, going forward, this can't be the only mechanism. They need to be looking at bringing back these open supporter meetings so that everybody can go in, or they'll have a fans forum, maybe Radio Lancashire's there, so everybody can hear it. But there needs to be, I think the credibility's been lost here. Yeah. To have the minutes change the way they have, and would that have happened on Steve Waggott's watch? Would it have happened on Eric Shaw's watch? I'm not so sure.
But to have to that level of extent,
to have them change the way it is, from an integrity point of view, it's not good, and hence I had to put a statement out because I'm not going to take part in lying to supporters. I've not done it in 20 years. I'm not going to start doing now because you get enough grief as it is without not telling people the truth or hiding the truth. And why give up your evening to go and attend a meeting if you're not going to share what was said? You can probably tell I'm very disappointed with how it all played out. I'm very disappointed the way we communicated to supporters, because we can control that ourselves. As supporters, we can control the communication a little bit better. And I'm very disappointed that we've allowed minutes which the forum members rejected to go on the club website, and it was literally a decision's been made. It didn't really matter what the rest of us said, and really, really disappointed.
You said there then about potentially something needs to change, or like the next kind of like communication with the club has to be something else. But obviously, given today's events, that we're recording this on Friday night, of when Elliot Jackson has been banned from asking questions about certain topics, do you see anything like that, any communication rounds like that happening in the near future?
It's never said never. Obviously, it's never moving landscape at Blackburn Rovers at the moment. I was again live. I've heard that today. I was told on Thursday morning from somebody within the club that there's a bit of anger around some of the leaks that are coming through the corridor at the moment, and there's going to be a lockdown in terms of what's coming out of the club. And in fairness to Valerie Ismail, he will say what he believes to be true.
What he's been
The problem is in any sort of organisation is how true is it what he was told. So if he says something which he believes to be true, because that keeps him happy, and then that turns out to not be quite true, then obviously it brings in the HR law, it brings in lots of multiple things that come into play. Obviously Louis Travis isn't very happy about what things have been said. I don't think from Val's I don't think he said anything maliciously. I've not seen that in his behaviour, but I think we're getting back to the screening. What can be asked, and what answers they'll give, and that's their prerogative at football. This is not the first time they did it. Back in Paul Agnew's days with Steve Keane. You know, I remember talking to many reporters I remember having a big chat with Fraser Dent and how they used to delay press conferences up to 2-3 hours, and then they'd have a list: can't ask, and even things that people saw with their own eyes, like aeroplanes flying over with Steve Keane banners out. Can't ask about that. Can't ask about agents. Can't ask, and literally nearly every question's off the table. Where well, yeah, you know, you start asking yourself, can you ask what's in the cup? Can you ask what they're drinking? And yeah, that'll be very, very difficult for Elliot not being able to ask questions. You know, he put quite a decent piece together yesterday, giving two sides of the story. Is that a trigger to why he weren't allowed to ask any more questions? But from a transparency point of view, you think where the weekend's gone. Obviously, lost a game at the weekend. Always going to be a tough trip down to West Brom, even at the best of times. Lost midweek in the cup.
I thought we were looking at West Brom. I think the penalty, looking back, I've watched it a couple of times, and I think it's a definite penalty. I don't think we performed to our best, and we probably didn't deserve a point, but on reflection, if you go away to West Brom and only lose 1-0 and you should have had a penalty, you'd probably come away a bit unlucky. I think the disappointing one's Tuesday. I know we made a lot of changes, but the guys coming in, I expect people like Tavares to go and win you that game when they're like your big summer signing, basically. But again, made mistakes. 2-0 down at first 5 minutes. I didn't go on Tuesday night. Did you go?
No, I was over in Ireland talking to our friend Rory.
Yeah. How did that go? How was your trip to Ireland?
It was good, and not obviously me and Rory known each other for a long time, and I've not seen him for ages, and I don't know if he's got taller or I've just got shorter. But no, it was really good to catch up with Rory and swap notes as we do, and being able to talk face to face and to have things that you can't really have, those chats on messages and stuff. So having that more fluent conversation, it was really, really good. And he's a great lad. He's a really, really good lad.
Okay, so we've got like the timeline in place. We've got all the communications. We've got all the fans forum minutes. What do you think is next for the fans forum, and what's going to be the next call from the action group?
Well, obviously, from an action group perspective and from a trust perspective, obviously we're going to continue to try and reach out to the club to get clarity on where they are on the FEP. Obviously the trust has got a memorandum of understanding, which the club was quite happy to see on the pitch and sign, and was quite happy to get a Girona Day, get everybody in, and all the things that the supporter groups have done to support them over the years. Quite happy to do all that, and then suddenly they've cut everything off. So we need to understand what that engagement looks like. I don't think the supporter base in general is going to just accept a couple of fans forum. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't even want anybody to talk to the club. Yeah. Because they think it's a waste of time. They think you're just talking to them. They're not really going to give you the answers that you'd like, or with any sort of integrity that you think, they're telling me the truth. And it's highly unlikely that what they answer, or any discontent, if you've got discontent, would filter from that meeting back to India unless you get it there yourself. So I don't think that's going to be their engagement. Obviously, they're going to look at how these minutes went. Obviously, the club are going to be extremely angry that suddenly they've had this meeting and it's leaked the way it has. That's sort of what happens when you don't play by a straight bat. And then obviously it's what's going on the pitch, isn't it? Because fans, I would say it was probably in quite a positive place. Quite a lot of fans over the summer, reading on social media. There seemed to be some optimism. There seemed to be, well, if they don't want to sign contracts, they can go. They can, we've bought some new players, and then suddenly a couple of games in, and suddenly the tide's turned again, and God, they need a result tomorrow. They really do, because if we don't get a point or a win tomorrow, I think it could start turning toxic again with no CEO.
Yeah. Well, our history of big away followings and a big game with a lot. I know it's only 2 games in, and it sounds crazy for me to say it's a big game, but I think with the atmosphere and everything that's going on around it, it is like tomorrow is a big game for the manager and the board. And in front of that Darwin end, if they're shooting towards that in the first half, like Sheff Wednesday did, I just have flashbacks to that Pers mistake in front of that sold out away end and them going crazy, and that felt like a real low. But yeah, I think tomorrow we could be on to a real similar dark situation.
It's tough because I look at it for what it is. Finished 7th last season, and yeah, we had that really bad spell. To think that we didn't make the playoffs at one stage, it looked like it would be impossible not to make the playoffs. But we finished 7th, and now that squad has been totally decimated. The team that's finished 7th, so we haven't added to the group to go to 6th and 5th and 4th. We've decimated the group, and we've brought a number of players in who we don't know if they'll be good or bad yet. I'm just not seeing enough of them. But as I said at the weekend, if we don't get that historically good start, and then we have our January to May that we usually have, this could be an extremely challenging season. Trying to stay positive, got my shirt, got my season ticket, with everything crossed tomorrow, trying to win the game. And then whatever will be after it. If we haven't won the game or we lose the game, I'll probably be silent for about 48 hours because I don't like make decisions on emotion. But the calls for action are growing, and people want, obviously I'm in the coalition, you're in the coalition, Cobros, all the other groups are in the coalition, and we do talk regularly. And we are football fans that want our football team to win, and we think about the 150 celebrations and lots of things that we can be doing with the fans, to try and, make that experience a little bit better, that 150, so that people can really remember it memorable. Where was you when the 150 happened? What was you doing? What events what bit of memorabilia did you buy? We're looking at all that type of stuff, and at the same time, on an hourly basis, we're looking at what is going on at the club. And people maybe like to see more. They'd like us taking to the streets and that, but we have to be very, very measured. This is lots of people, lots of groups, democracy, people coming to align at a slightly different thing and trying to do what's in the best interest of the whole supporter base and the club, because ultimately we want the club to win football matches. So it's just getting that balance, isn't it?
Like you said, loads of people coming together, loads of people have different opinions. Some are more want to be more active than others, and some are more diplomatic, and both approaches are absolutely fine. We all want the best thing for the club, so there's not one person saying I don't want the best for Blackburn Rovers, and we've all got different skills. Like some are more creative than others, and like bringing out, but some people are a lot more organised in terms of organising meetings and like have really good links with communications and media and stuff like that. So let's hope we don't need as much action from the coalition. Hopefully that thing starts to turn around both on and off the pitch. But yeah, just thanks for coming on for the podcast, Glenn, and telling and just being as open as you have been about the Fans Forum minutes. I'm sure a lot of people will listen to it and read the post you did on BRFCS and get like a true awakening into what actually happened during that Tuesday night, Monday night, whichever one they told you it was, eventually.
Yeah, like I said, disappointing to have to make a statement and discuss it, and because I'm a firm believer in unity, and I don't think what I will say from the supporters' perspective, I don't think any of this happened in malice from anybody in the Fans Forum. We've just got a bit of a process there that doesn't quite work, and maybe a few more outspoken people have joined the forum and said, well, that's unacceptable. We're not having minutes that don't reflect. And there's not been a big row or a big argument or anything like that. We just wanted transparency and truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's all anybody wants.
Yeah, definitely. Right, cheers, Glenn. Appreciate your time. I'll see you tomorrow.